Lyra Valeris woke up to the sound of debris all around her. The cold, biting wind carried the smell of burnt earth and the distant echo of a battle that seemed like it would never end. Her eyes were heavy, but she forced herself to get up, ignoring the pain that came from deep within her soul. It was a weird feeling, like the weight of the world was on her shoulders, but she couldn't remember why. What bothered her the most was the scar on her chest, like some emblem of something she couldn't recall. At the base of her neck, an ancient symbol pulsed, as if it was a direct link to her forgotten past. She looked at the horizon, where smoke still rose, and she knew she had to go somewhere, that something was calling her. But what? And why did it make her feel an increasing sense of anxiety, like something much bigger was waiting for her? With hesitant steps, Lyra walked toward a ruined village. Destroyed homes, devastated land, nothing seemed to have been spared from the fury of a war she didn't even understand. In the shadows of an alley she found a figure, Ronan Drax. He was standing there, with a torn cloak and tired eyes, but something in his gaze made her hesitate. He was looking at her like he knew exactly who she was. Lyra felt a chill run down her spine. How could he look at her like that, like he had the answer to everything she didn't know? Ronan knew something about her. Something she didn't know. "You finally woke up," he said, his voice rough but filled with a certainty that was almost unsettling. "I was hoping it would be you." The silence that followed between them was heavy. Lyra felt an impulse, an uncontrollable need to understand what he was saying, but the words wouldn't come. She felt this strange connection to him, like she already knew him from somewhere, even though his face was completely unfamiliar. "Are you hunting me?" she asked, but her voice came out quieter than she expected. The tension hung in the air. Ronan just gave her a bitter smile. "Actually, I'm trying to save you. The war you don't remember fighting, it's far from over." He took a step forward, but Lyra quickly stepped back, suspicious. The feeling that something much bigger than her was going on only intensified, and the fear of losing control of her destiny was becoming almost unbearable. "I'm just a shadow of what I used to be, Lyra. You're the key to what's coming." Ronan started walking, not waiting for a response. "But we have to get out of here." "No. They're already hunting us." Lyra followed him, not sure whether she could trust his words or not. Something inside her told her she had no choice. Deep in her soul, something was pulsing with an urgency she couldn't ignore. She knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but no matter how hard she tried to convince herself she was doing what she was supposed to, something told her her destiny was calling her for much more. Something she didn't yet understand, but soon would have to accept. With the wind hitting her face and the sound of hurried footsteps echoing across the devastated land, Lyra felt her journey was just beginning. But there was something that troubled her deeply, the feeling that she wasn't just a spectator of her own destiny, but that there was something in her blood, something she still couldn't understand, that made this calling impossible to ignore. And so, with the weight of the past piling up on her shoulders, Lyra found herself in a race against time. A race in which, with every step, more of her destiny seemed to unravel. She didn't yet know how far this path would take her, but one thing was clear. She was being pulled into something much bigger than she could ever imagine. Something that would demand more than she was ready to give. The search for the truth led Lyra and Ronan to a desolate region, where the once great empire had now been reduced to dusty ruins and relentless deserts. The marks of war, still fresh on the ground, seemed to tell stories of suffering and destruction. Lyra felt that, somehow, the echo of those stories was part of her own existence. Her steps were heavy, as if the weight of an unrevealed destiny had already begun to consume her. But deep down, she knew the path she was taking wasn't just that of a survivor, it was that of someone who had been chosen for something greater. The truth, she believed, was in the shadows, waiting to be revealed. It was in one of those ruins that they found Leora Faye, an eccentric mage with torn clothes and an aura that seemed to blend with the wind. Her deep green eyes watched Lyra as though she knew exactly who she was, even without the young woman saying a word. Leora didn't bother with pleasantries. Instead, she pointed to the horizon, where the ruins of an ancient temple stood as a silent reminder of a long-lost time. "The truth lies beyond the walls of what you know," she said, her voice carrying something that bordered on melancholy. "But the question is, are you ready to face it?" Lyra, still stunned by the idea that her lineage might be so important, didn't know what to say. Ronan, ever more pragmatic, went straight to the point. "What do you know about the ashes?" he asked, already feeling that they were at the center of something much bigger. Leora looked at him with an enigmatic smile. Everything. And nothing. The ashes aren't just immortal warriors, they're guardians of a secret you don't yet understand. Leora's words hit Lyra like a ton of bricks, sending a chill of doubt straight down her spine. What she didn't know was that the secret of the ashes wasn't just about the source of her power, it was about the war that had wiped everything out. A war that wasn't between kingdoms, but against something way older and much darker. Leora led them to the ruins of a temple where, in complete silence, the three of them started exploring the remnants of a civilization that had been erased from the map. The temple, with its crumbling walls and broken stones, seemed to tell a forgotten story, a story that, deep down, felt like it had been written just for Lyra. As they touched the stones, the wind seemed to whisper, as if the answers were hidden in every detail of those ruins. The sound of footsteps echoed through the shattered hallways. It was like something was closing in, something still there, waiting to be awakened. As they entered the heart of the temple, Leora began to speak in an ancient tongue, and the stones started to glow faintly, flashing on and off. The images and symbols that appeared on the walls left Lyra speechless. She saw the symbol on her neck, glowing with an intensity she never imagined. The ashes, Leora said, her voice now deep, almost like an echo, were the guardians not just of the secret, but of the key to seal something much more terrifying than you can imagine. What you carry is the link between what was and what can still be, Lyra. But there's no guarantee you'll be the last to carry this burden. What you do with it is up to you. Lyra felt the weight of those words like a curse. She was tied to something much bigger than she thought. A war, a battle, an uprising of forces she never asked to face, but were now right in her path. As the shadows of truth began to form around her, she knew there was no turning back. She wasn't just searching for her origin, she was searching for the truth that could, in the end, destroy or save whatever was left. And the sacrifice to reach that truth would be even more devastating than she could have predicted. Ronan, with a darker expression, pulled her back into reality. So what now, Lyra? You've got the truth, but the war that comes with it, it's not gonna be easy. He knew that, as much as he wanted to help, the real weight of the decision was on her. But Lyra had no doubts. This was just the beginning. The real mission was coming, and with it, the ghosts of the past that still needed to be faced. They left the temple, the sound of their footsteps echoing off the empty walls. The truth was there, in the shadows of the ruins, but also in the pain Lyra felt in her chest. Something way bigger than she could imagine was closing in. The wind howled like it knew that the war she feared was just starting, and in the end, there was no single fate that could be avoided. Lyra was about to make choices that would define her future and everyone around her. And so, as they walked away from the ruins, a new challenge appeared ahead. What came next, Lyra didn't know yet, but she felt the answer was in her bloodline. The legacy of the ashes was starting to reveal itself, and what it meant for their future was about to come to light. Lyra and Ronan crossed the vast, desolate stretch, the wind hitting their faces hard, like the world itself was trying to warn them about what was coming. The symbolism of the ruins still echoed in Lyra's mind, but there was something else on her thoughts, a growing feeling that time was running out. The journey was starting to feel like more than just a search for answers. It was a path into the unknown, where the choices they'd make could change everything forever. The tension was thick between them, and neither Ronan nor Lyra were fully prepared for what was about to happen. As they moved through the forest, a dark and suffocating place, the silence was broken only by the sound of dry leaves crunching underfoot. They weren't alone anymore. Their presence had drawn something else. Something that was watching from the shadows. Ronan felt the shift in the air before Lyra even noticed. He turned to her, his expression serious, full of warning. "They're here," he whispered, already pulling his sword from his belt. Lyra felt a chill run down her spine. This was the Ashes territory, the immortal warriors, the ancient force that had been awakened. And now they were at the door. Before they could react, shadowy figures appeared from the trees. They moved with supernatural speed, looking more like specters than people. They were the Ashes, and the way they approached made it clear they weren't just warriors. They were sentinels of a secret kept for centuries, and they were here to stop Lyra and Ronan from going any further. Their leader, a towering figure in dark steel armor, locked eyes with Lyra, his gaze burning with an intense, cold light. He didn't need to say anything. His presence alone made the message clear. Your journey ends here. Lyra felt a fire ignite within her. She wasn't backing down now, not after everything she'd discovered. She gripped the symbol around her neck, and suddenly, a wave of power wild and fierce washed over her. It was like her bloodline had awakened, and with it, an ancient force that connected her to the ashes in a way she didn't fully understand yet. But she knew she had to fight. She couldn't let fear take over. Not now. Ronan moved first, his sword slicing through the air with deadly precision. He moved with the speed of a seasoned warrior, delivering precise blows to the ashen closing in on him. Lyra, on the other hand, felt a mysterious energy growing inside her. Leora's words echoed in her mind, "The key to your power lies within you." Without thinking, she extended her hands and an explosion of light shot out, hitting one of the ashen square in the chest. The force was so intense that he was knocked backward, crashing to the ground with a thud. Lyra looked at her hands, surprised, but there was no time to reflect. The Ashen weren't just skilled warriors, they were immortals. The battle was far from won. The leader of the Ashen advanced toward Lyra, and she could feel the weight of his presence. He wasn't here to fight, was here to destroy. When he attacked, Lyra felt an overwhelming force against her. His blade seemed to cut through the very air, and his power was palpable, almost tangible. But something inside Lyra stirred in that moment. The pain and fear morphed into fierce determination. She wasn't going to let her bloodline be wiped out again. She wasn't going to let the Ashen win. Ronan was fighting fiercely, but the Ashen leader was unbeatable. Lyra knew that to win, she needed more than her newly discovered strength. She needed to understand what her power really was, what lay behind the symbol on her neck. She focused, trying to connect with the energy that seemed to flow through her. In a moment of clarity, the answer came. The symbol on her neck wasn't just an emblem of her bloodline, it was a seal, a key to awaken the power of the guardians of the Vinculo. And if she could control it, she could defeat the Ashen. With a shout of strength, Lyra extended her hands again. This time, the power that surged from them was much stronger. The light radiating from her palms took on a more solid form, almost physical, creating a barrier that stopped the Ashen leader in his tracks. Lyra was beginning to understand what it meant to be the heir to her bloodline. The sacrifice she would have to make, the secrets she would need to uncover, all of it lay before her, and she had to be ready. She wasn't just fighting for her life, she was fighting for the future of all. The Ashen began to retreat, surprised by the strength Lyra was showing. But the leader was still there, watching. Lyra knew the battle wasn't won yet. The confrontation had only just begun. However, she felt closer to understanding her destiny. She wasn't just facing the Ashen, she was challenging fate itself. And with that, she knew the war was far from over. As the Ashen pulled back, Lyra felt the weight of the fight still to come. But there was no fear anymore. There was only the certainty that her journey was just beginning, and that the battle against the forces threatening to destroy the world would demand more from her than she ever imagined. Lyra and Ronan were exhausted, but their victory over the Ashen brought a sense of renewal. The battle had been tough, but now, more than ever, they were determined to continue their journey. The road to the heart of the ruins was long and uncertain, but the vision of what lay ahead pushed them forward. The ruins weren't just a destination, they were a symbol of what was to come. A place where the mysteries of Lyra's bloodline could finally be unraveled. The landscape around them seemed to crumble with every step, as if the earth itself was dying, trying to escape the weight of the secrets buried beneath it. The trees were twisted, their roots exposed like veins of a sick organism, and the wind that blew was cold, carrying something strange with it, an impending sense of destruction. But there was something more, something that kept them steady. They knew they were close to discovering something that would change everything for them and for the world. Every night, as the camp settled in for rest, Lyra would sit away from the fire, contemplating the stars. It was impossible not to feel the presence of something greater, as if her destiny was intertwined with the forces that ruled those lands. She wondered what it meant to be the heir of a lost bloodline, what she would have to sacrifice to restore balance. Leora's words echoed in her mind. True power comes from union with what was lost. But what exactly did she need to understand? The answer always seemed just out of reach, never quite close enough. Ronan, on the other hand, was more focused on moving forward. He knew that the battle against the Ashen had only been the beginning. Now they needed to find what the ancient guardians had left behind, something that could confront the forces tearing the world apart. He knew that without it, there was no future. He couldn't let Lyra face it alone. They were in this together, and he would do whatever it took to ensure she had the chance to fulfill her destiny. As they neared the center of the ruins, the terrain grew more dangerous. The ancient structures were imposing, their walls covered in moss and runes that seemed to move on their own, as if waiting for someone to decipher them. Lyra couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. Something in those ruins seemed to sense her presence, testing her courage and resolve. Every step she took brought her closer to the mystery she was searching for, but also closer to the danger that awaited them. But the real test wasn't in the physical ruins, it was in the ones hidden inside Lyra. What was she willing to face in order to uncover the secrets of her bloodline? She knew the key to what she was looking for was somewhere between the weathered walls, but she didn't know how to access it. The fear of what she might find was always there, but the need to continue the journey was even stronger. Time was running out. The forces of darkness were closing in, and Lyra could feel that her bloodline, as powerful as it was still incomplete. What she needed to discover wasn't just about what the Guardians had left behind, but about what she herself was capable of. She wasn't just on a mission to find lost artifacts, she was discovering who she truly was and what fate had in store for her. The wind picked up, and a strange feeling filled the air, like something was being awakened deep within the ruins. Lyra stopped for a moment, her eyes locked on an opening ahead, an entrance that seemed to reveal itself like magic. It was as if the earth itself was inviting them in. The entrance was covered by a curtain of vines and intertwined roots, but something inside Lyra told her that the answer to what she was seeking was right there. Ronan stepped closer to Lyra, his gaze serious and alert. He knew something was about to happen, something that could change everything. "Are we ready?" he asked, his voice low, almost reverent. Lyra looked into his eyes, feeling a mix of fear and determination. She knew that by stepping through that entrance, there would be no turning back. They were about to cross a line. The question wasn't if they were ready, but if they could handle what was coming. With one last look at the path they had traveled, Lyra moved forward. Each step felt heavier than the last, as if the world itself was testing her courage. But she couldn't stop now. She wasn't just looking for the truth about her bloodline anymore. She was searching for the power to change her destiny, to restore balance and protect the future. As they entered the darkness, the entrance slammed shut behind them with a thunderous sound, as if the earth was closing in to either protect them or trap them. There was no turning back now. The journey had reached its climax, and whatever was waiting inside the ruins, it was time to discover. What Lyra and Ronan would find there could either save or destroy everything. But deep down, Lyra knew she was about to become something much greater than she had ever imagined. She was about to unravel the secrets of her bloodline and with it, her destiny. Inside the depths of the ruins, the air was thick and heavy as if time had stopped there. Each step Lyra and Ronan took echoed off the walls, reverberating like a reminder of the weight of what they were about to face. The inside of the chamber was impressively a large, circular hall, its walls covered with ancient tapestries and worn symbols that seemed to tell stories of a long-forgotten time, when the Guardians still protected the world. But now, everything was silent, as if this place had been forgotten by time itself. At the center of the hall, a stone platform rose up, and on top of it, a crystal urn pulsed with a faint light. The energy emanating from it was palpable, as if something monumental was locked inside. Lyra knew this was the heart of what she was looking for, the final secret of the Guardian's bloodline. This was where her journey would culminate here, where she would face her destiny. But before she could move forward, a voice echoed through the hall. It was low, almost a whisper, but as clear as the wind blowing through a moonless night. "You've come a long way, heir to the legacy. But do you know what you're really searching for?" The voice seemed to come from every corner at once, distorting the space around them. Ronan stepped in front of Lyra, instinctively protecting her, but she didn't move. She wasn't afraid. She knew this was the moment. "I know what I'm searching for," Lyra responded, her voice steady, though her heart was racing. "I'm looking for the power to restore balance, so that the world won't be lost. The Guardian's fate cannot be forgotten." The presence in the room seemed to intensify. Something ancient and powerful was waking up, and Lyra could feel it in every fiber of her being. The energy pulsing from the crystal seemed to pull her in, as if it was calling her to unite with it. But she knew it wouldn't be simple. The price for the Guardian's power had always been high, and she was about to pay it. Suddenly, the light from the crystal intensified, illuminating the walls around them with runes that moved in a supernatural way. A figure appeared in the center of the Hala, being of light and shadows, with a presence that overflowed with wisdom and pain. She wasn't human, but something beyond that, something immortal. The Guardian had manifested. You've come this far, Lyra. But what will you do with the legacy you carry? Are you willing to bear the weight of the choices that will come? The figure asked, its voice full of gravity that reverberated in the air. What the world needs isn't more power, but more sacrifice. Lyra stared at the figure, taking in every word, every feeling it conveyed. She knew this was the final test, the moment that would determine not only her fate, but everyone's around her. It wasn't just about restoring balance, it was about choosing what sacrifice she'd make and what legacy she wanted to leave behind. I accept the sacrifice, Lyra said, her voice now full of determination. If this is what it takes to save the world, I'll do whatever it takes. We don't fight just for what we want, but for what the world needs. The Guardian's figure nodded, and the energy in the room grew stronger, almost unbearable. The crystal started to crack, light spreading throughout the chamber. Then your path is sealed. The power you seek is yours, but remember, great power comes with great responsibility. The future of everyone depends on the choices you make now. The chamber started to disintegrate around them, the walls and floor breaking into chunks of stone and light, like the world itself was witnessing the rebirth of something lost. Lyra felt the power of the Guardian lineage flow through her, a power that was no longer a burden, but a blessing, something she now controlled. But with it, something else formed inside her, the understanding that her destiny was bigger than any power. It was the responsibility to protect and restore, to maintain the balance. As the chamber crumbled around them, Lyra and Ronan, now closer than ever, stepped out into the world that awaited them. The legacy of the Guardians wasn't lost. It had been restored, not by one person, but by those willing to bear the weight of responsibility and sacrifice. And with that, Lyra knew her journey wasn't over. She'd restored the power, but now the real challenge would begin, protecting what had been restored, facing the forces that still wanted to see the world plunged into darkness. But she wasn't alone anymore. She had her destiny, her strength, and the friends who had joined her to face whatever it took. Lyra's journey had been long and full of challenges, but she had finally found her place in the great cycle of destiny. The weight of the Guardian's legacy no longer haunted her like it did before. Now she carried it with pride, knowing she was ready to defend the world's balance, not with strength, but with the wisdom and sacrifice her choices represented. The light that radiated from her was no longer that of a mere heir, but of a true Guardian, destined to protect not just the power of the Guardians, but also the future of all. As Lyra, Ronan, and the others walked toward the horizon, the reality of what had been restored was still settling in their minds. The world wouldn't be the same, but what lay ahead of them was an opportunity to rebuild, to start over, to make the right choices to preserve peace. They were ready, together, to face whatever came their way, because they knew that true strength didn't just come from the power they had, but from what they were willing to sacrifice for the things they loved. And so, the story of the Guardians' lineage didn't end there. It lived on in their daily choices, in the silent battles they would face, and most importantly, in their commitment to a more just and balanced future for everyone. Because, in the end, the greatest legacy of all wasn't strength, but the ability to protect what is truly valuable. And the future now was in Lyra's hands, and those who, like her, chose to be more than just heroes. They were the Guardians of Destiny. The end of this journey was just the beginning of another, because destiny was always in motion. There was always more to discover, more to protect, more sacrifices to be made. And as Lyra and her friends moved forward, they knew they would never be alone. The legacy of the Guardians, now restored, would live on forever in each of them. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to leave a comment, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more stories like this. I'll see you in the next video.